This video was brought to you by Embedded System Solution, a company composed of like-minded electrical engineers, computer engineers, and computer scientists, and whose main goal is assisting our engineering customers, non-engineering customers, and technician level customers with their electrical and computer engineering level and technician level needs. Our customers range everywhere from engineering students to university professors, technicians to engineers, junior engineers to senior engineers. Please feel free to visit us at www.embeddedSystemSolution.com. Again, www.embeddedSystemSolution.com, or better yet, email us at support@embeddedSystemSolution.com. And like always, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like. Okay, so hopefully the username and the password, hopefully it was clear. How is it that it works? How is it that hashing algorithm works? And how is it that simple username and password is the key to the weakest link? Now we're going to talk about public private key and why is it that it's more secure and how is it that exactly that it works. Now remember, public and private key, we're talking about configuration, right? So we're not necessarily talking about, because username and password is every time you log in you send it across the network. This is more of configuration, but it also covers on the theory. So let's see. So again, SSH, public key, private key. Okay, so let's get ready. Okay, so public key and private key, as you probably already know, it's a program. You can even use PuTTY that you generate a public key and a private key. Now that's kind of interesting. I don't want to get into too much in terms of the mathematics behind it, but it's very interesting how to generate these keys, and it involves prime numbers, so and prime factorization and modular arithmetic. But it is beautiful, but we're keeping this simple only for computer admins, right? And so again, the computer on the left, that represents the server. That represents we want to do authentication setup using server, using SSH, and using the public and private key. How is it that it works? Well, let's suppose the computer on the right, the guy in the pink, right? Let's suppose he wants to configure. Now, let me see. I think this is show. So you generate a public and a private key, right? Let me see if this is it. Okay. Yeah. So like previously before, just because you want access doesn't mean you have access, right? So someone on the server has to accept these keys, or you must have already an account. That's the important thing. You must have an existing account and say, I'm tired of putting in my username and a password. I'm going to use private and public key so I don't have to put in my username and password for authentication every time I want to remotely log into that computer. You can do that, right? But remember, you either have to have an account or there has to be a computer admin that accepts the key and puts it in a specific directory. That way you can have authentication using SSH, right? And public and private key. So anyways, so you have this person and he wants SSH authentication. So of course, well, I don't know if it's obvious, right, to me now that I know about this, since I've known about this, you have that user and he wants to do authentication. So he generates a public and a private key, right? Now, that public key, somehow he has to send it to that server, right? Now, I remember when I barely learned this, I couldn't believe that there was such a thing as a public key and anybody can learn it, and it doesn't really matter if somebody intercepts it. So somehow you got to get that key to this place. So it doesn't matter. Email it. I remember it's like, no. I can't email it. How is it that you're going to email authentication stuff? It matters. It doesn't really matter. You can email it. You can put it on a flash drive, transfer it from one computer to the other. You can text it. You can phone call the person and tell them the key, the actual key. You can even do that. You can write it down on a piece of paper and, somehow send it. You can even scream it out where people are hearing you, and it doesn't matter. People are still not going to be able to hack you because it's the public key. Now, let's keep going, okay? Let's just keep going. I get excited, I'm sorry. Now, you can even telnet the key. And you can, if you already have an account on the server computer, you can SSH the key, right? That's probably the best method. But that requires already having an account and knowing a little bit about SSH. And so we're going to make the assumption that no, But anyways, it doesn't really matter which way. And again, that just what I just clicked on, it shows that you already have an account, right? You just got to get the key one way or another to that other side, right? And so that person has to grab that key, the computer admin, let me see, and has to put it in a specific directory. Right now we'll explain which one, right? So you generate the key, and because it's a switch, You sent that key. Let's suppose you use SSH to transfer the key to that remote computer, right? It is a public key. And in this case, we're pretending that there's a computer admin and there's a user. The pink guy is the regular user that wants access using keys. Authentication. Remember, authentication, again, I can't keep stressing enough because I was confused by it. Authentication means that the computer, the server computer, looks at the username, password, and it says, are you in the list or not? Do you have these credentials on this computer or not? That's what it means. So anyways, so you sent the public key. The user, the admin gets it. Now, let's suppose, sorry. So if it's a switch, then you pretty much know that nobody else is gonna see the transfer of that public key, right? But what happens if you use a hub, Ethernet hub? And we already talked about the problems with Ethernet hub. The good thing about Ethernet hubs is that they're cheap. The problem is the security of them. That whatever you send to one port, it echoes it to all the other ports. That's the problem with the hubs, that they're cheap. But anyways, and let's suppose you do the same procedure, right? You send the person your public key. Just like a hub, every single computer gets that public key, right? Including Mr. Bad Guy. Yeah, he's back. He's back, right? And so he's like, I got your public key. Now, let's suppose this person too, person number purple, not only does he have your public key, but he also wants access to the server using SSH and public and private keys. So he too wants to join in the fun. So he's like, I'm gonna generate my own public and private key, and I'm gonna send it across the network, but it's a hub, remember? So just like the other guy, the problem is everybody gets a copy of the public key. Do they not? Now, so far, so good, right? So the Mr. Bad Guy, the guy in green, he has two public keys. And let's suppose he thinks he can outwit everyone. And he's like, I'm going to generate my own public and private keys because I also want access to that computer. I want to be able to remotely log in and control it, right? So he generates his own public and private key. And I like this picture, by the way. So everybody receives his public and private key. His public key. So he's like, you know, he's thinking he's getting away with it. He thinks he's stealth. Because after all, if you look at the guy in green and the guy in purple, they almost look the same. They both have two public keys, and they both generated their own public and private keys, and they both sent them to the server. So from the outside, it looks like he's like one of the guys. Nobody's going to be able to tell what he's doing, right? Not exactly. Notice how the key on the server side, it didn't exactly get latched in. It didn't get saved in. So even though Mr. Bad Guy might have sent in the key, the computer admin does not recognize the guy. Like, he's not any of the existing accounts people. And again, if you don't know about accounts, please look at the videos before, because we talk about adding accounts in a computer and the importance of them. Again, to master SSH, you have to understand that part. So anyways, the computer admin looks at the account. He's like, I don't recognize this person. He emailed it. Let's suppose the Mr. Bad Guy emailed him and said, hey, here's my private key, my public key. The computer admin is like, you can send me everything you want, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna put it in the SSH folder. It's like, bye. So what does the computer admin does? What does he do when he sees the list and he's like, I don't recognize this guy? He discards it. So Mr. Bad Guy is kind of like, oh crap, I kind of got caught. But still, I have the public of these two other guys, right? So, shuck. So he hasn't exactly hacked, but he has the public key of each person. What can he do with it? Well, at least that's what was going on through my head. It's like, hey, he has the public key. That must account for something. Can it? Oh my god, people, I almost got a heart attack. So it took me a while for me to create these animations, and I don't know if you guys have ever used LibreOffice, but sometimes it's a really involved process. And honestly, I thought one of my files had been corrupted and it wasn't showing the animation correctly. So I kept going with the animation, but I wasn't comfortable, and I got to a point where the animations wasn't making sense, and I was having like a panic attack because I'm like, it's hard to fix it. So anyway, so let me continue on here, and let me remember where I left off. And again, sorry, I have to get the momentum going again. But anyways, always remember to back up your files. Luckily, the only thing that I did was I closed the application and opened it up again, and it seemed to have worked. So anyways, so we're left with the bad guy sent his private key, and the server rejected it because it's like, I don't recognize you. You can send me whatever key you want, but I don't recognize it. So anyways, so Mr. Bad Guy generates, he sends to the server to authenticate. Like I said, it takes time for the moment to kick in. So he says, here's my public key. I want to authenticate to the server, because remember, the bad guy doesn't know more of what happened. It just sent the private key. The public key. I mean, it just sent the public key to the server, so it doesn't know exactly what's going on to keep. Yeah, so it just keeps going. So it thinks it's one of the guys, right? Because it looks like one of the guys. If you compare the green guy with the purple guy, in fact, and with the pink guy, they all look the same. Like they all three have two public keys, and they have their own private and public key. They generate their own private and public key, right? So Mr. Bad Guy thinks he's one of the guys and he can hide. And it does look that way, but it's not the case. So anyways, so he generated his public key and his private key, and he sent his public key to the server, and the server didn't necessarily register him. He said, like, you can send me whatever key, but I don't recognize you. You're not an existing account, so bye. So anyways, so Mr. Bad Guy sends to the server, hey, I want to authenticate. Here's my public key. I want to log in. Now the server receives it, sees the public key,